My name is Desmond Klenam and I'm a lecturer. And so in second year, I do the CHMT 2019, which is Material Science and Engineering, where we try to help students understand material from a structural perspective. Then in third year, they do what we call crystal structures and analysis, where you actually look at crystals. Is basically looking at the DNA of a material. So basically that's what I do. Then I supervise postgraduates too as well, masters and PhDs. So that's basically what I do. We had a summer school in Rwanda, like you rightly said, and at that place what we did was we're looking at, it's called Center for Inclusive for Digital Transformation, and the idea is how do we introduce artificial intelligence tools into the design of materials. So the way we did it is to look at how can you apply a tool like MATLAB, Python to design materials, where you can just look at the periodic table. I call the periodic table a grocery list, and then the laws of physics, chemistry, and thermodynamics as a recipe that you can actually use to design materials. So what we've done is, instead of you going to take a material and then melt it, test it, do trial and error, which is waste of time, why don't you look at the thermodynamics, the physics of it, the chemistry of it, and then design the material on a laptop, and then try to see how much of that material can you take and actually make in real life. So basically those are some of the things that we're doing. And I mean, Africa is the home for a lot of these minerals. So the idea is to move from just mining these minerals and then selling them to beneficiating these minerals and then adding value. So it is that value proposition that we are pushing as a narrative across the continent, so that we can develop more materials. So the statistics that is very staggering is that in 2022, the cost of minerals that was actually shipped and just exported cost $400 billion. Now, if you add value to that material, you can improve that by 250%. So if we can say Africa is rich in mineral resources, but it's not rich in the expertise that we need to take these materials and make them something meaningful. So for instance, let's use agriculture as an example. I like using this thing. When you have a coffee farmer in Ethiopia and they make a coffee, that coffee is sold in Starbucks in the US for $100. But guess what the farmer makes? The farmer makes close to 50 or 60 cents out of every $100. Now that is very worrying. So what that means is that we need to start thinking carefully about how we train people and making sure that they add value to the raw materials that we have. Raw materials are like, we tell somebody you have potential, but potential is nothing. It's just energy that is stored. If we can take that potential and convert it to kinetic energy, then there is movement. Now when there is movement, there is change, then we can look at the conservation of energy. So basically that is what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that we develop the things that we can use. So Ali Mazrui, a Kenyan philosopher and professor, said, Africa uses what it does not produce and produces what it doesn't use. Now we need to change that narrative, and that's the reason why I studied materials in the first place. WITS does one of two things. The first one is that students are given technical knowledge which they need, but WITS have been very strategic in how they position the students. So we are very keen on what we are calling the 21st century skills. So one of the things that we've realized, and McKinsey also did a study, is that students have some form of technical skills, but the soft skills is what is actually missing. What are the soft skills? We are talking about creativity. People should, and I've come to a place where I've understand that we have basically two categories of students. Those who have well-filled minds, because of the age of the internet, they have so many things they can just read and get it. But we have those that have well-formed minds, and that is what WITS gravitate towards. So you come here, and we help you understand that the world out there needs skills that you can actually use to develop. So we were very big on critical thinking, because if you can see a problem and say, how can I break it into small chunks and solve them? And then how can I collaborate? Because we're living in a society where one person cannot do it. There is an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go further, go with people. What it means is that collaborative. And if you look at the African setting, we work as a group, so that we can borrow from the expertise of all the people that we can. I only know materials. There'll be somebody who knows computer science. There'll be somebody, even an HR person is needed. The economists are needed. How do we bring all these people into the room? That is what VIT gives us. And the last thing is that communication. How to communicate your ideas effectively, because we are in an area or a part of society right now that your inability to communicate your ideas effectively will be your own undoing. So what we are trying to do is to first help students get the technical skills, and then also the soft skills, and then they can be prepared for the future, because we need to prepare people. And lastly, learning is in 4 stages in my view at VIT. One, we are talking about unified learning, meaning that transdisciplinary, where we learn from all other people. When you are working on a project, for instance, this project that you're working on, you have somebody taking the video, somebody taking the pictures, somebody coordinating event. That is how it works. Now, number 2, learning should be extensional, meaning that this student, undergraduates, spend 4 years with us, masters 2 years, PhD 4 years. We need to give them skills that when they go to the world of work, they can adapt into the changing areas in the society. And then the third thing is that the things we teach to be experiential. So we are talking about problem-based learning. We need to create a system or a way where the student can actually try to understand, mimic what is happening in the real world, and then they can apply the theory to practice. Because sometimes theories are based on the underlying thing on theories are the assumptions, but in real practical application you need to test that. And finally, learning should be contextual. Contextual means that we are an African country. How do we position the student to know that the challenges that we face in Africa are challenges that are very fundamental? We are talking about water, we are talking about energy, we are talking about transportation, we are talking about unemployment. How do you position a student so that they can see what are the challenges they have in the society, and then they can fix them? Because this is also an era, the era of the 3 C's. We are talking about accelerated change, overwhelming complexities, and tremendous competition. We are competing with a global north and global east. How do we position a student that is coming from a global south, a student that is coming from underprivileged society, to understand that the chances, the opportunities that are there, if only they can work a bit harder, they can push the needle. Now that is what we are trying to do. So it's more of a passion mixed with discipline, in a way that helps the student to be situated and organized in a way that they can be able to leverage from the opportunities that the future should. Lastly, if you take yesterday, today, tomorrow, yesterday, if O means opportunity, yesterday is gone. So it's like newspapers, we read it and forget it. But today, if you look at the word today, there is only one O there, meaning the opportunities of today are very few. How do we position students so that they can leverage the opportunities of tomorrow? If you take the word tomorrow, which has 3 O's in there, it means that if we can help them to understand that whatever their dreams are is possible, then studying materials engineering is not about engineering, but it's about the society. And if we can position them, then I can go home and sleep and know that I've done my job.